I did a video I posted on my social media a few weeks ago, or no, maybe it was within the last week, about assumptions, government loans that are assumable. And, if you're a seller and you have a home that you want to sell and it has a government loan on it, FHA or VA, and you've got some equity, so you're going to make a nice profit on selling that home, and your rate is in the threes, you should really be considering selling now, take that big chunk of change, and move on to the next property, because a buyer now can assume your loan.
Can buyers assume a VA loan if they're not a veteran?
Oh, thank you for, did we practice this? That's my favorite question. The answer is, if you're not a veteran, you can assume a VA loan. And the great thing about VA loans is that they have low rates if they've been around for the last couple of years. If the loan was taken out in 2021 or 2020, those rates are really super low. You don't have to be a veteran to assume a VA loan.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. And I'll tell you why I'm asking you this in a second, but walk us through that process. I just have to get qualified and talk to the loan servicer of the VA loan, or how does that work?
Yeah. Well, whenever I spread this news, as a loan officer, I only get paid if I originate or start a brand new loan for somebody.
Right.
So if you're going to assume a loan, then you're not going to need my services, but you are going to need a savvy real estate agent, both as a buyer's agent, and the listing agent needs to know what they're doing, because the seller will contact their servicer, and they should do it sooner than later, because the servicer, or the person that the seller makes their payment to, their mortgage company, they'll need to request from them a assumption packet, and that can sometimes take a couple of weeks. So that's why I say you should call sooner than later. If your house is currently listed, or if you're thinking about listing it, order that right away, so that if you do have a buyer come along that wants to assume that loan, then you can have that ready for them and have them complete it and speed up the process, not slow things down. They still need to qualify. There are going to be requirements that the current mortgage company for that seller, they're still going to have some requirements that your buyer have to meet. But if they do, and they have the down payment, because I always like to say, let's say the house is listed for sale for $600,000, but the seller owes $400,000, right? So that means the new buyer has to come up with the difference between $400,000 and $600,000. Well, if you've just sold your home and you've made a couple of $100,000 on it, you don't necessarily need to come to me and get a 6 or 6.5% interest rate. You can go and assume somebody else's loan at 3 or 2 point whatever, right? Which is awesome. But what if you don't have enough money to make up the difference between a $600,000 and a $400,000 balance? Some of these servicers are allowing these qualified buyers to take out a second mortgage to make up that difference.
Wow. I didn't know that.
So you don't necessarily have to have all that big down payment. And if a servicer won't lend that to help you get in there, that's fine too. I happen to know a loan officer that has a source for second mortgages, a standalone second mortgage, to help a buyer get into that house. But if you can get it done, the fees are great. The process, as a seller, you need to be prepared to deal with your mortgage company, maybe slowing down the process a little bit. It's not going to be something that happens in 2 weeks. It'll take a little bit of time. So if you can plan for 30 to 45 days, you'll be in good shape. But it's a great way for a buyer who can't help themselves, that's focusing on rate, but they do have a big down payment. Why not assume someone's loan?
I love that. And actually, the house I'm sitting in, Jason, I'm assuming a VA loan. So just moved in at the first of this month. I did a lease option. I'm still finalizing my divorce, and still, have $1 million house on my credit that she lives in. So we're working on that. I did a lease option to buy, which, so I'm all about creative mortgages and options. So I gave these guys a a sizable down payment that they've already put in the bank to buy their next house. Bought it for $650 or leased it. So I'm paying the mortgage right now. And we're in the middle of, soon as my divorce is finalized and she's got the house in her name, I can go ahead and assume this VA loan at 2.9%.
Yep. Yeah.
So hold on. So just give me an idea. What's the payment difference at 2.9 on 650 versus current rates at 650?
Probably $500 to $700 a month.
Yeah. So just a beautiful thing. So I love that you brought that up, because it's like, yeah, it's actually really cool. I didn't know that until I just started contacting houses that weren't selling. And I said, hey, I have a unique situation. Got to wait for this other house to be removed from my credit, to be refied off my name. In the meantime, I need a house for me and my kids, and I've got some cash, and I'll do a lease option. And then, they said, well, even better, we've got an assumable VA. And I'm like, wow, the stars really aligned. So I'm 1 minute from my kids' elementary, 1 minute from their mom, so they can ride their bikes to my house. I've got 50% custody. So it's worked out amazing. But the moral of the story, this is like the third home I've purchased with really creative financing.
Yeah.
And that's why I say, as realtors, we have to help our buyers understand that you don't just have to get a conventional 6% loan or whatever rates are at. You can assume a VA. You can do a lease option to buy. You can, there's lots of different ways to do things that help you not miss out. And this house is an amazing deal. It was not selling, just sitting on the market. They needed to sell. They built a new home.
Yeah.
And it worked out great for both of us. So it's just funny that you mentioned that. I'm literally in the middle of assuming a VA loan at 2.9%.
Well, I guess that's awesome. Life is good, right?
It's almost as if we planned this conversation, but we didn't. So that's hilarious.
Well, my point with that whole thing about assumptions was not just to talk about how easy it is for a buyer to get a rate that's, in the threes, but if you're a seller and you don't want to sell, you don't want to list and sell right now because you're so concerned about that rate, the market rate.
Mm-hmm.
There are options for you if you can find a home that it will work for you, and it has, because your real estate agent can filter when they do their searches. I want FHA and VA loans only, right?
Yep.
And so if you're a seller and you can find a house that meets your needs and it has an assumable loan, then put your house on the market, for crying out loud. Get that baby sold and buy your next house by assuming someone else's loan, and let some other family start the next chapter in their life in your home.